Hey guys, so I'm here with another video about triangles. Wanted to kind of go along with what the district was doing, and the next thing after the triangle inequality theorem is the triangle sum theorem. So I wanted to kind of first break down the word triangle. Okay, again, this tri means three. Okay, so obviously three angles in a triangle. And the word sum leads us to believe that we're going to be using addition as our operation in this rule. And the actual theorem states that the sum of the measures of the angles in a triangle is equal to 180 degrees. Okay, now you might be thinking, well, where did they get this 180 degrees? Did they just make it up one day? Is it mean something? Where did they get it from? So it actually does mean something, and we're going to kind of discuss that before we move on to actually using the theorem. So I drew a straight line here, okay? And you can either call this a straight line or a straight angle, okay? That means the same thing. If I took a protractor and I measured from side to side, so all the way from here to here, the measure angle would be 180 degrees, okay? Now, how does this involve triangles? Well, so I cut out a triangle here from index cards. I started off like this, and I just cut a triangle. I labeled the angles 1, 2, and 3 because there are 3 angles in a triangle. So if we were to cut these angles off, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to cut these angles off. Okay. So here are my 3 angles. I'm going to turn them over so you can see. And then this part right here, if you're following along and doing this, you don't really need this anymore. You can kind of get rid of it. So I'm going to take my angles and I'm going to try to line them up along this straight line. Now, it may take a couple of times. You might have to rearrange them, but they should fit exactly along this straight angle. So I'm going to just take these and kind of maneuver them. And like I said, it might not work the first time, so you might have to rearrange them a couple of times. I'm going to rearrange this one. Go like this. Nope, that did not work either. So let me take this way. And I think this is going to work. Oh, perfect. So again, they should line up to be exactly along that line. And this is kind of where we get that 180 degrees. So we kind of decompose the triangle, we cut off its angles, and we laid them along this line. And now we can see that angle 1 plus angle 2 plus angle 3 gives us 180 degrees. And that takes us into our formula of what we use for the triangle sum theorem. So here's the formula. Whoops. All right. So just like what we just did, it showed us that the measure plus the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3 gives us 180 degrees. And we're going to use this to help go through a couple of examples and find the missing angles. Okay, so before we go into example 1, I wanted to do kind of a recap because we're going to use our knowledge of solving equations to help us with finding missing angles in a triangle. So just to recap, if we have the equation 12 plus x equals 20, okay, first things first, we need to make sure that this side and this side remain equivalent, and that's what this equal sign is doing. So if we draw that line here, and our job is to find out what x equals, okay? Now this is a simple equation. I know that you could probably figure this out without having to do any math, but I wanted to kind of recap because this is the knowledge that we're going to be using to apply it to our examples. So if you remember, 12 plus x equals 20. I'm trying to get this x by itself. Right now it's held together to this 12 by addition, and this is a positive 12. So I want to get rid of this 12 so I can only have the x by itself. But I can't just say, oh, let me get rid of it and just erase it. No, I actually have to eliminate it mathematically. So if this is a positive 12, I want to use my 0 pairs. So instead of this being a positive, I wanted this to be a negative. And again, remember the whole key is to remain balanced. So if you do this to one side, you need to do this to the other side. So if I'm going to subtract 12 on this side, I need to subtract 12 on this side as well. And again, this positive 12 and this minus 12 gives you that 0 pair. So you're left with x, and you can just bring it down here, equals, and then we just need to do the actual subtraction. 20 minus 12. Again, I'm going to have to borrow because 0 minus 2, you cannot do that. So I'm going to borrow from the 2, and this becomes 10. So 10 minus 2 is 8, and 1 minus 1 is 0. So x is equivalent to 8. And I can check that very quickly by plugging this in. So 12 plus x equals 20. So where I see the x, I'm going to plug in 8. 12 plus 8 equals 20. And so 12 plus 8 is 20. And these two are equivalent. 20 equals 20. So therefore, that is correct. So 8 is my solution for x. So we're going to apply this into the triangle sum theorem because we are going to be solving for missing angles. Okay. All right. So the first example the district used was this one. It gave you a triangle, and it told you that if the measure of angle 1 equals 90 and the measure of angle 3 equals 55 degrees, find the measure of the missing angle 2. So we're going to use our formula. First, we're going to write it out. The measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3. Again, remember, has to equal 180 degrees. And then from this point, we're just going to plug in the information from the problem. The measure of angle 1 is 90 degrees plus the measure of angle 2. Now this is what we're solving for, so you could put an x here, just like a variable, that's what's missing. And then the measure of angle 3 plus 55 degrees, again, still has to equal 180 degrees. Now, again, my job, just like with any equation, is to get this x by itself. And right now it's attached to the 90 and the 55. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to combine the 90 and the 55. I'm going to add those together. And when you do, you're going to get 145 degrees. We still have this x here, plus x equals 180 degrees. And again, just like with our recap, I want to still have x by itself. So I need to get rid of this 145 degrees by creating 0 pairs. And again, this is a positive, so I want to go ahead and get this minus or this negative. You can draw the line down here too to help you remember. And again, what I do to one side of the equal sign, I must do to the other to keep my equation balanced. Here, this creates a 0 pair. So then I'm just left with this x here, so I'm going to bring it down. X equals, and then I just need to do the subtraction here. So 180 minus 145 gives us 35 degrees. Okay, so the measure of angle 2 equals 35 degrees. And you can check, you can go back and plug this in to make sure. So you would just take all the angles and add them together. So 90 degrees plus 35 degrees plus 55 degrees should equal 180 degrees. So 5 plus 5 is 10, carry the 1. 1 plus 9 is 10, plus 3 is 13, plus 5 is 18. So yes, if I go back and check, all 3 angles added together gives us that 180 degrees. Okay, so the second example, they wanted you to apply the theorem and solve it on your own. And hopefully you did that. If not, you can kind of pause this video and try to work it out and unpause it and see if you get the right answer. So we're going to actually kind of work through this one together just to make sure. Hopefully you've already worked through it, but hopefully you can see if you got the answer right. So if the measure of angle 1 is 71 degrees and the measure of angle 2 is 57 degrees, it wants you to find the measure of angle 3. So again, we're going to write out the formula. the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3 is equivalent to 180 degrees. And then we're going to take our information from the problem and we're going to plug it into the equation. We're given that the measure of angle 1 is 71 degrees. We're given that the measure of angle 2 is 57 degrees. And we're asked to find the measurement of angle 3. So that's our variable. That's what's missing. And you can even add a degree sign to your x. And all of those have to be equal to 180 degrees. And so then we're just going to solve. We're going to combine these two terms together, 71 plus 57, and we should get 128 degrees. And everything else stays the same, plus x has to equal 180 degrees. Okay, and again, we are trying to get this x by itself. We are trying to solve for the missing angle. So we want to get rid of this 180 degrees by creating 0 pairs. So if this is a positive 180, or we want to have this negative or subtract 180 from both sides. I'm sorry, 128. Sorry, we want to get rid of this 128 by creating 0 pairs. And again, this would be a negative 128 on both sides. So again, this creates that 0. We're going to bring our x down. And then we're just going to do the math here. 180 degrees minus 128 degrees. We're going to have to borrow here. This becomes a 7. This becomes a 10. 10 minus 8 is 2. And 7 minus 2 is 5. So x equals 52 degrees. Or the measure of angle 3 is 52 degrees. And again, I do want you to go back and check and plug it in. Take all 3 of your numbers, add them together. Make sure that it comes out to 180 degrees. So 71 degrees plus 57 plus 52. Okay, so 1 plus 7 is 8. 8 plus 2 is 10. I'm going to carry the 1. 1 plus 7 is 8. 8 plus 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 plus 5 is 18. So again, yes, they do add up to 180 degrees. All right, example number 3. Okay, they're giving us this triangle. I notice that there's 2 angles here, and the question is find the measure of angle F. And so obviously they want us to find this one here. Okay, so you can put an X here, or you can put F. Again, just to keep the variable coinciding with the angle. So again, we're just going to plug it into our formula. Here, again, instead of using numbers, the triangle is actually labeled. So we're going to actually use those letters. So the measure of angle F plus the measure of angle G plus the measure of angle E all have to equal 180 degrees. Okay, so we have our all 3 angles, 1, 2, and 3. So then you're just going to plug it in, filling in what information you are given. So we're given that the measure of angle G is 120 degrees. We still don't know the measure of angle F. That's what we're solving for. So I'm just going to use F as the variable. Plus the measure of angle E is 40 degrees. And again, it all has to equal 180 degrees. So just like before, we're going to add these terms that we do know together. 120 plus 140 gives us 160. And we're still solving for this F. Okay, equals 180 degrees. To get F by itself, we need to get rid of this 160 degrees. And it's held together by addition. So we're going to do the opposite. Again, to make that 0 pair, we're going to subtract 160 from both. Again, remember, make sure you're doing it to both sides to keep your equation balanced. This becomes 0 pairs. So then this F is left by itself, and you can bring it down here. F equals, and then we just do the subtraction. 0 minus 0, 8 minus 6 is 2, and 1 minus 1 is 0. So the measure of angle F